May 1940. German soldiers have been awake for 3 days straight. They have driven hundreds of kilometers through France without stopping, without sleeping, without showing any of the exhaustion that should have stopped them days ago. Their commanders are sending reports back to Berlin that seem almost impossible to believe. The men are still attacking, still moving, still fighting with the aggression and precision of soldiers on the first day of a campaign, not the third day without sleep. Allied commanders looking at the speed of the German advance can't explain it. They don't know about the small white tablets that German soldiers are carrying in their breast pockets, millions of them, issued by the Wehrmacht, endorsed by the High Command, prescribed by military doctors. The drug that powered Hitler's army and ultimately helped destroy it. Its name was Pervitin, and this is its story.
This video was inspired by one of our subscribers while we were discussing this topic in the comments section, so a huge thank you to them. Leave your comments below. We always love discussing important topics, and who knows, we might make a video about something you're interested in next. Thank you to all our subscribers. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us as we dive into the most compelling moments of this terrible war. Before we begin, we want to make it clear that drugs are evil, and we absolutely do not condone their use. Enjoy the video.
Information is Pervitin. It's methamphetamine. In 1938, when it was first introduced to the German market, nobody called it by that name. It was simply Pervitin, a pharmaceutical product manufactured by the Berlin company Werke, a stimulant, a performance enhancer, a pill that would keep you awake, alert, and energetic when your body would otherwise demand sleep. It was sold over the counter. Students used it to study through the night. Factory workers used it to stay productive through long shifts. Housewives used it to keep up with the demands of running a household. It was marketed as harmless, modern, scientific, a pharmaceutical solution to the problem of human exhaustion. The active ingredient, methamphetamine, had been synthesized decades earlier by Japanese chemists, but the commercial production and mass marketing of the drug as Pervitin was a German innovation, and Germany embraced it with enthusiasm. By 1939, millions of tablets were being sold every year. And then someone in the Wehrmacht had an idea. If Pervitin could keep factory workers productive and students awake, what could it do for soldiers? The German military began testing the drug on soldiers in 1939. The results were extraordinary. Soldiers given Pervitin could march longer distances with less rest. They could stay awake and alert through multi-day operations. They reported increased confidence, reduced fear, and a willingness to take risks that would normally cause hesitation. The drug didn't just keep soldiers awake, it made them feel invincible.
Military doctors conducting the trials noted some side effects: increased heart rate, dry mouth, occasional restlessness. But in the context of a military preparing for war, these seemed like minor inconveniences compared to the operational advantages the drug provided. The Wehrmacht's medical command authorized mass production. By the time Germany invaded Poland on September 1, 1939, Pervitin was being distributed to frontline units as standard issue. Small tins containing tablets were given to soldiers along with their rations and ammunition. The recommended dose was 1 to 2 tablets for periods of extended wakefulness. In practice, soldiers took more, much more. During the invasion of Poland, German quartermasters distributed approximately 35 million Pervitin tablets to the Wehrmacht. That is an average of more than 20 tablets per soldier involved in the campaign. The Polish campaign lasted 35 days. Do the math. German soldiers were not taking Pervitin occasionally, they were taking it constantly, day after day, sometimes multiple times per day. The recommended dose became a suggestion that was routinely ignored by men who discovered that more pills meant less fear and more energy. And the Blitzkrieg that shocked the world in Poland was in part chemically enhanced. But Poland was just the beginning. The real test, the campaign that would show what a methamphetamine-fueled army could actually accomplish, was coming in the spring of 1940. The invasion of France.
May 10, 1940. Germany launches Fall Gelb, the invasion of France in the Low Countries. The operational plan depends on speed. German armored columns need to push through the Ardennes forest, terrain that Allied commanders consider impassable for tanks, and reach the English Channel before the French and British can organize an effective response. The entire strategy requires German units to move faster and farther than any army has ever moved in modern warfare. They have to stay awake. They have to keep moving. They have to ignore the physical limits that would normally stop an army after days of continuous operations. Pervitin makes it possible. During the French campaign, the Wehrmacht distributed over 35 million additional tablets. Tank commanders were given supplies to distribute to their crews. Luftwaffe pilots received their own specially packaged versions: Flieger Schokolade, pilot's chocolate bars laced with methamphetamine designed to keep them alert during long-range bombing missions. The drug was everywhere. Lieutenant Colonel Heinrich Bull, who would later become one of Germany's most celebrated post-war novelists, wrote letters home to his family during the French campaign asking them to send him more Pervitin. His letters are remarkably candid about the drug's effects. He describes feeling invincible, tireless, capable of anything. He also describes, in later letters, the crashes, the paranoia, the inability to sleep even when he finally has the opportunity, the sense that something is wrong with his body and his mind, but that the only solution is to take another pill. Bull was not unusual. German soldiers in France were operating in a chemically altered state that made the impossible seem routine. Tank crews drove for 3 days without significant rest. Infantry units marched through the night and attacked at dawn without pause. Officers made aggressive tactical decisions that defied conventional military caution because they felt no fear, no doubt, no hesitation. The French campaign was won in 6 weeks. The speed of the victory shocked the world. Military analysts spent years trying to understand how Germany had accomplished what 4 years of fighting in the First World War had failed to achieve. Most of those analysts never knew about the Pervitin. The German High Command didn't advertise it. It was considered a tactical advantage, a secret weapon that gave German soldiers an edge that their enemies couldn't match. Why would you tell the world that your army was running on methamphetamine? But the soldiers knew, and some of them were beginning to understand that there was a price. Private Franz Kemmerich, a soldier in the 7th Panzer Division, wrote in his diary during the French campaign about the men in his unit who had started taking Pervitin before every engagement. He described them as fearless in combat, aggressive to the point of recklessness, unable to follow orders that required patience or caution. He also described what happened when the pills ran out. The same men collapsed. Some wept uncontrollably. Others became violent with their own comrades. One man in his unit had to be physically restrained because he became convinced that French soldiers were hiding inside the German tanks. The crashes were becoming a problem. The dependency was becoming obvious. And the long-term consequences, the thing that nobody in the Wehrmacht Medical Command had adequately studied before distributing millions of tablets, were beginning to emerge in ways that would eventually compromise the very army the drug was designed to enhance. But in the summer of 1940, with France defeated and Britain on the defensive, those concerns seemed distant and abstract. Germany had just won the greatest military victory in modern European history, and Pervitin had been part of it. The drug was working, until it wasn't.
By 1941, the problems with Pervitin were becoming impossible to ignore. Military doctors began filing reports about soldiers suffering from what they described as chronic exhaustion syndrome. Men who had been taking Pervitin regularly for months were experiencing heart palpitations, severe weight loss, depression, and paranoia. Some were having psychotic episodes that required hospitalization. The dependency was severe. Soldiers who tried to stop taking the drug experienced withdrawal symptoms so debilitating that they couldn't function. Commanders found themselves in an impossible position. Their men needed Pervitin to maintain operational effectiveness, but the drug itself was destroying them. The Wehrmacht Medical Command issued new guidelines in 1941 attempting to restrict Pervitin use. Soldiers were instructed to take it only in emergency situations. Military doctors were ordered to monitor usage more carefully. The orders were largely ignored. Because by 1941, Germany was fighting on the Eastern Front. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, was the largest military operation in human history.
3 million German soldiers advancing across a front that stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The operational demands were even more extreme than France. Longer distances, harsher conditions, an enemy that refused to collapse the way Poland and France had collapsed. German soldiers needed every advantage they could get. Pervitin distribution continued. But something had changed.
The drug that had made soldiers feel invincible in 1940 was producing different effects by 1942. Soldiers were taking more tablets to achieve the same result. The crashes were more severe, the psychotic episodes more frequent. Military doctors began documenting cases of soldiers who had become so dependent on Pervitin that they were stealing it from medical supplies. Officers reported men taking 10, 15, 20 tablets in a single day, doses that would have been unthinkable 2 years earlier. And then there was Hitler himself. Adolf Hitler had been receiving daily injections from his personal physician, Dr. Theodor Morell, since 1936. The exact contents of these injections were kept secret even from other members of Hitler's inner circle. But after the war, when Allied investigators examined Morell's records, they found something remarkable. Hitler was being injected with methamphetamine, regularly, daily, for years. The drug that the Wehrmacht had distributed to millions of soldiers was being administered directly to the Führer himself. Morell called it Vitamolten. The label was a lie. The active ingredient was methamphetamine. By 1944, Hitler was showing all the signs of chronic methamphetamine abuse. He was increasingly erratic, paranoid, unable to sleep or eat properly. His hands trembled constantly. His decision-making, never particularly rational, became impulsive and detached from reality in ways that horrified even his closest military advisors. General Heinz Guderian, one of the architects of the Blitzkrieg, later wrote that by 1944, it was impossible to have a coherent conversation with Hitler about military strategy. The Führer would rant for hours about betrayal and weakness, refuse to acknowledge setbacks, and issue orders that made no tactical sense. Some historians have argued that Hitler's drug dependency contributed to the cataclysmic strategic decisions of the final years of the war. The refusal to allow retreats, the insistence on holding untenable positions, the belief, maintained even as Soviet tanks were approaching Berlin, that victory was still possible. Whether the methamphetamine caused these decisions or simply reinforced tendencies that were already there is impossible to say with certainty. What is certain is that by 1945, both Hitler and the army he commanded were running on a drug that had stopped working the way it was supposed to. The Blitzkrieg had been fueled by Pervitin. The collapse was fueled by it too.
The story of Pervitin is not just the story of a drug. It is the story of what happens when a military machine decides that human limits are an inconvenience to be chemically eliminated. Germany went into the Second World War with what appeared to be an insurmountable advantage. Soldiers who didn't sleep, soldiers who didn't feel fear, soldiers who kept moving when any rational calculation said they should stop. In the short term, it worked. Poland fell in 35 days, France in 6 weeks. The Blitzkrieg that shocked the world was powered in significant part by methamphetamine distributed on an industrial scale to millions of men who had no full understanding of what they were taking or what it would eventually do to them. But the human body cannot be fooled indefinitely. By 1942, the Wehrmacht was paying the price for what it had done to its own soldiers. The men who had felt invincible in France were burned out, dependent, physically compromised in ways that couldn't be reversed by issuing more tablets. The drug that was supposed to give Germany an edge had become a liability. And at the very top, in the bunker under Berlin where Adolf Hitler spent the final months of the war, shaking and paranoid and making decisions that accelerated Germany's defeat, the cost of years of methamphetamine dependency was written on the body and mind of the man who had started it all.
Pervitin was declared a controlled substance in Germany in 1941, too late to undo the damage already done to hundreds of thousands of soldiers. After the war, the story was largely buried. Germany didn't want to talk about it. The Allies, who had defeated the Wehrmacht, didn't particularly want to complicate the narrative of military victory with pharmaceutical explanations. The soldiers who had taken the drug spent the rest of their lives dealing with its consequences in silence. It wasn't until the 2010s, when German historian Norman Ohler published his research in a book called Blitzkrieg, that the full scale of Pervitin use in the Wehrmacht became widely known. The drug that powered Hitler's army. The drug that helped win France. The drug that contributed to the paranoia and irrationality of the man who lost the war. History is rarely simple, and the Second World War, the most studied conflict in human history, still has secrets that can change how we understand everything we thought we knew. If this story surprised you, share it. Leave a comment with what you think. Did Pervitin win the Blitzkrieg, or would Germany have won anyway? And subscribe. Every week we bring you the real stories of the Second World War, the ones that never make it into the history books. The next video is already coming. Don't miss it.